40, after the storm. Voices, tears, reconciliations. I remember them as waves of words going back and forth, running over my head, around, past, through me. I walked out to the window and pinched my nose to block out the smell of a building that Dad said was sick, and I had to agree. Somewhere, pigeons cooed. They got in through a broken window. Cold air brushed my cheek. Somebody took me by my shoulder. It was Dad. While Mum and Aunt Gloria helped Salim to his feet and wrapped him in their coats, we looked out together. The gale blew itself out, and a new push of air, cool and calm, stole in. The moon appeared from behind a bank of a cloud. That's when we saw it. London, from the 24th floor, lit up like frost on glass. The dome of St. Paul's was a luminous curve straight ahead. To the left was the White Eye. It was motionless, a giant bicycle wheel in the sky that did not turn. And we went home. In a hoarse, shaky voice, Salim told us what had happened. He had starved for nearly 3 days. He'd found water in a toilet in the flat. That is what he drank. He tried to shout from the window on the 24th floor. Nobody heard. Nobody looked up. He tried to get into other flats. They were all locked. He tried to get out the stairwell, but the door at the bottom was bolted. He tried to break out of the building 1,001 ways, but he couldn't. He was trapped. All he could do was wait and hope. He was sat where there was light and a view in an empty flat on the 24th floor. He slept on the abandoned mattress, despite its dank smell. He had half a Mars bar left from his outing with Marcus, a disposable camera, the clothes he had on, and nothing more. Then our doctor came to check him over. He pronounced him shocked but strong. He said how brave Salim was to have endured what he had and prescribed a bowl of soup and bed. Dad phoned the police and told them how we'd found him. The next day, Aunt Gloria, Rashid and Salim talked quietly together all morning in the living room. I don't know what they said, but afterwards Aunt Gloria announced that Salim wanted to give New York a trial period of 6 months. This time it was his wish, she said, not just hers. Rashid left. He thanked us for what we'd done. He said he'd never forget it. He and Salim would visit us as often as possible, he promised, when Salim came home for the holidays. As he walked through the front door into our postage stamped size front garden, he turned and looked at Aunt Gloria, who stood beside me. Aunt Gloria's hand fastened itself hard on my shoulder. Gloria, he said. Rashid, she said. A moment passed. Rashid shrugged. His eyes were like Salim's. I'd only realised that now. Dark lozenges. Enjoy the Big Apple, he said. The corners of his lips went up slightly. He waved a hand. We'll try, Rashid, she said. Goodbye, goodbye. His hand dropped to the side. His shoulders went down. Then he turned away and walked down Rivington Street. My head went off to the side as I watched him recede, and he looked back one last time before disappearing round the corner. After Rashid left, Salim asked to see Kat and me. He was plumped up on pillows on the sofa. His faint moustache had grown back, more noticeably than before. I remembered what he'd said about grass and lawnmowers. He wanted to know everything, how we'd worked it out. He smiled at each bit of the story, especially the bit about the motorcycle show. Kat told him most of it. When she got to the end, she said, Salim, I just have to face it. My weirdo brother is a genius. Salim looked at me. You're a neek, all right, Ted. Only it's got nothing to do with nerds and geeks. It's short for unique. Kat and Salim laughed at that. So I did too. And that was when I knew I had 5 friends now, not 3. Mum, Dad, Mr. Shepherd, Kat and Salim. And I was pleased about that. What was the worst thing about being trapped in that block, Salim? Kat said. Salim shrank back into the pillows. Ugh, you don't really want to know. Yes, we do, Kat said. The noises, I guess. The noises at night. I'd lie on the mattress and I'd hear the wind moaning around the tower, up, down, everywhere. Then the patters and sighs started, odd gurgles, noises I didn't really understand. I couldn't place them. Scuttles, creatures scooting across walls, rats, cockroaches, a flap of wings. Was it birds or bats? I lay in the dark. I put my jacket over my head. I buried my ears under my arms, but I could still hear them. Then something landed on my cheek, just a scrape. I sat up and I screamed. Okay, Kat said, blocking her ears. Sorry I asked. It wasn't all bad though, Salim said. No? During the day it was okay. I watched the weather. I was close to the clouds. There was this thunderstorm. I saw lightning flickering over London, and these dark sheets of rain moved in, and then the sun came out. I took some photos, buildings and sky. One half of London was dark, the other half light and sunny. The river was in both halves, a thin silver line, and what divided it all was the eye, big and white. I took a photo, Kat, the last one on the disposable camera, but the best photo I'd ever took. That afternoon, Kat and I had a final visit from Detective Inspector Pierce. Dad and Mum sat and listened while Kat told her everything that we'd thought of and that we'd done. Detective Inspector Pierce's lips turned upwards at the end. She looked at me. Some brain, she said. She looked at Kat. Some action, she said. You two have everything it takes to make first-class police detectives. Dunno, said Kat, dubious. I fancy the fashion trade. I told her I was destined for the Met Office. Pity, she sighed. My colleagues say I'm a good detective. You have to be if you're a woman in the force. But you two have taught me something. Youngsters are more worth listening to than a legion of adults. If it weren't for you two, Salim might still be trapped in that tower block. And by now the concrete crushers would have gone and done their worst. Oh, I dread to think. She shook her head. We looked high and low, north and south, and all along. He was right around the corner. Then Dad said, I just don't understand how Salim got himself locked in like that. I had a security guard posted at the gate, and I checked each floor, one by one, to make sure it was empty. It was a few phone calls later before we knew what had happened. Salim said that as he walked past the block, he'd noticed the gate to the boarded-up fence was left ajar. It was a magnet. He thought of the 24 floors, the views that would soon no longer exist, and his disposable camera. He'd only be in a few minutes, he promised himself. He slipped in. Nobody was about. He'd found the main entrance, then the doorway to the stairwell. He cruised up the stairs. Meanwhile, Dad had been checking each floor was vacated. The last tenants were all gone. He posted his colleague, Jackie Winter, as guard at the outer gate, while he'd gone up, using the stairs, until he got to the very top. You rang me, Faith, to say that Salim had gone missing, just as I was on the 24th floor, in the vacated flat. I remember rushing out. I left the door to the flat unlocked. It was no big deal, since the building would be secure from the below. To save time, I took the lift back down to the lobby. That must have been just as Salim was coming up the stairs, I guess. I locked all the doors in the lobby area. I turned off the water and electricity and I went outside. I locked the main entrance. There was Jackie by the fence gate where I'd left him. We padlocked the gate together and left. Salim swore he'd seen no sign of a guard. Jackie Winter was questioned. At first he denied having left his post. Then he broke down and admitted it. He'd nipped to the newsagents. He'd only been gone for 2 minutes. He'd been dying for a smoke and had run out of fags. He lost his job. That's the penultimate chapter. Last one tomorrow.